And, it was almost like part of how I identified as a person. And then I came over and I was working at the Soho men's store of Lululemon. And so it's just purely men's product, really tiny store right in Soho. So it's amazing people
Yeah.
watching. And the team was so cool. It was like a little family. But, coming from Australia and Sydney, I don't really have back home a lot of friends or many friends at all that are black or people of color. And then all of a sudden I'm in New York where it's just the melting pot of the world. And
Yeah.
so I started to, I was keen to share my knowledge about plastic pollution. And then I realized I can't really be preaching this stuff or spreading this message unless I'm educated on like other things going on in the world. And, it's all connected. So I kind of started on a journey of just learning about race and just like sexuality as well, because obviously, New York's so diverse in all different ways. And
Yeah.
it was cool because like you said, it was in your face.
Yeah.
And I've just been on that path ever since. So yeah, learning a lot.
Nice. New York's good for that. It helps you become more aware of a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
and still it's every day. I feel like I'm always still discovering something new, and I'm still shocked sometimes, but it's more and more, I'm less surprised, at the things that you find and realize. So it's been interesting, and particularly in the last, 6 months, we've
oh
just,
boy,
COVID has really helped to accelerate the conversation.
it really has. Yeah, it's further highlighted inequities that, I mean, America's America, but I think really big takeaway I've taken from, this awakening that America and the world's having around racism is it's not unique to America. Australia, you said, is that like dumb Aussie luck, and we're seen as this happy-go-lucky country, but we're a colonialized state as well, and
Yeah.
racism's really pretty heavy there. It just looks different. You can't really compare Australia and America. But it's a very different situation, different populations, and all that. But the British colonized it. The Aboriginal, like the Indigenous Black population there, have been suppressed. You know,
It's
the incarceration rates of Black people in Australia is actually worse than America, which is
wow,
in terms of like in
proportion.
proportion. Yeah, so it's been cool because I've been channeling what I've been learning back to home and like trying to start conversations with family, and they've been really open to it. And friends, some
Nice.
have kind of ignored it, some have been keen to chat about it a little bit. But yeah, it's what we're facing, not just COVID, but systematic racism is a global problem. It's not just America.
Oh, I mean, well, you see the message is pervasive all over the world. A lot of people identify with it, and it's hopefully positive change will come from it. I believe so, but you
I do
know,
too, and it's like what energizes me to keep going. I think with all these things is you got to just keep pushing on.
well, so your focus and your area of expertise is plastic pollution, and I can't help but think how pollution in general is a race issue in many ways, and
Mm-hmm.
also an economic one. It's definitely some people can afford to buy high end recycled or really well made products that don't use plastics, but everything that's affordable is plastic and cheap, and it's hard when you are trying to keep your head above water, trying to keep a job, and you have to eat and get something quick and convenient because you don't have time if you have family and you're working multiple jobs. So it's really it is an economic and also it can be a race thing too.
100%. And, I mean, to give context, I'm in a
Yeah.
long-term relationship with a Black woman. So that's really
Hmm.
pushed me to grow and change and learn probably at a faster rate than I would if I wasn't dating someone of color, a Black person.
Hmm.
But, I came over here being like, no one should use plastic. Just like no one, like, stop using it. And then realizing that it's actually a far more complicated conversation for not just like black communities or communities of color, but just
No.
poor people in general, like poor white people as well. It's not the first thing you're gonna do. Like you need to put food on your table first. You need to help like support yourself and your family. Um, and there's obviously the education aspect of
Yeah.
it as well. So yeah, it's a really complicated issue, especially in a country as large as America with so many different states and cultures and flavors, and it's everything's highly politicized here as well. It's really big problem, and I am really passionate about it. I think a lot of my expertise just comes from being passionate about it. I don't have a scientific background at all. Like I'm certainly know enough about the science behind it, but yeah.
Well, let's get into it. Like, what so you developed a passion for against plastic pollution. I guess I didn't want to say I really developed a passion for plastic pollution. I just like to spread it everywhere. No, I meant like you mentioned that you were on a trip with Stefan, and and that was a trip that you had with Hurley and their H2O campaign, was it?
Yeah, that was I mean, so I got really, really lucky. I don't know if you know, there's like not anymore, but the US there's the US Open of Surfing in Huntington.
Yes.
And then the sister event is on Manly Beach in Australia, the Oz Open. So one year they had, Hurley was the major sponsor, and they had their H2O, which is like their social impact program, I guess, where they realize, hey, we're sending these surfers to these exotic locations. How can they give back in some way? And they were supporting a doctor who'd gone over to a remote part of Indonesia called Sumba, and he noticed that the communities there didn't have clean drinking water. And you can't have nutrition without clean drinking water, and you also can't really have education without clean drinking water, because the women and the children were spending most of their days going back and forth
bringing water.
Yeah, so they started installing these water filtration systems, and like I said, it was like Hurley's kind of like social impact program, so they wanted to market the work that they were doing. So they sent a bunch of pro surfers over there, and I won like a kind of raffle ticket to go over. I had to it was crazy. It was like, talk about dumb Aussie luck. But you had to they had a stall, and I was talking to the people learning about it, and you just had to post a photo of you at the stall.
Yeah.
And I did like a handstand and posted a selfie or whatever doing a handstand. I won going to the trip. And it was just like so cool.
Best handstand ever.
It was pretty shit one. I'll show you the photo. It's like pretty lopsided, but I was stoked. And then I found out that Stefan and Campbell were going to be working it, and so all of a sudden I knew two people on the trip. Nice. And it was going to be Ace Buchan, who I looked up to a lot, and he's actually a Take 3 ambassador, and we can talk about that later. But he couldn't go, so it was having a mental blanket. Kai Hing. So he's a young Aussie surfer. Marlon Gerber, who's like one of my favorite surfers on the planet. He's just
so stylish.
Oh yeah. So because he's obviously local, so we got to go to Sumba and see the work that they were doing and hang out with the communities there, and obviously score epic waves. And it was the first time I'd kind of surfed these remote reef breaks, and it was pretty humbling surfing with like Marlon and Kai.
Did they let you into Aki's Left?
No, not Aki's Left.
Oh, that's like the really expensive surf resort that like you pay like 10 grand or something.
Where is that?
It's in Sumba.
Oh, it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looks like a good left.
We surfed some amazing waves, though. It was pretty cool. So anyway, that was like, it was fun. It was a fun trip, but I was really like into the purpose behind it and understanding like that there's just a lot of room for improvement around like the way that we interact with communities, and especially as surfers, we get to benefit from these remote locations and exotic waves, and it's just good to give back. So that kind of opened my eyes to just like that kind of work, I suppose. And then I met Tim Silverwood, who's the co-founder and former CEO of Take 3. I actually met him at university. So I mentioned before I was doing this business degree, and I was bartending at the time and kind of just really pushing myself to get through these courses. Like I was doing finance and economics, and I'm not strong at maths, so I was kind of it was like I having to do quadruple the work that most students are doing just to pass these subjects, and most people were like maths whizzes. So I was looking for something extracurricular to do. I was at that stage in my life, my early 20s. I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And I went to this global leadership kind of program that the university I was at was doing. I went to UTS in Sydney, and Tim was speaking, and it was the first time I'd ever heard about plastic pollution. And Tim's whole spiel was like, you know, he'd seen this problem in Bali and other countries, and he's like, well, I'm a surfer, and you know, the surfers are kind of like the canaries in the gold mine. We're the first people to see this problem because we're out in the ocean. So he felt a need to do something about it. And at the end of his PowerPoint slides, I noticed he was like interested in looking for an intern or something. So I gathered up the courage and went to speak to him after the talk, and just said I would love to help in any way it means possible. And that's how I kicked off my experience with Take 3.
Sweet.
So that was,
That's
I think, 2013. I think I met him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is Take 3 to the beach?
Yeah, good question. It's Take 3 for the Sea. It's a non-for-profit.
Sorry, my bad.
No, it's okay. It's a non-for-profit, and essentially the message behind it is take 3 pieces of rubbish with you when you leave the beach, waterway, or anywhere, and you've made a difference. And then obviously, if you can imagine everyone on the planet taking 3 pieces of trash or rubbish, that's a lot of trash and rubbish. So it's all about collective impact. And then, you know, just through the platform that is social media, it's started as this grassroots organization on the central coast of New South Wales, so just north of Sydney, into this global movement where the hashtag Take 3 for the Sea is now being used in over 129 countries. I don't even know anymore how many times it's been used, but it's just now become this global movement. And of course, there's all these other groups that are doing great work as well. And one of the cool things about working for Tim was it was never competitive. You know, sometimes non-for-profits can kind of step on each other's toes, and he always just had the idea that all these other groups are also taking 3 for the Sea. So it was always this like kind of inclusive, fun, collective movement. And, you know, I think when I started, it was a few years away from the general public all around the world understanding the problem. And obviously now it'd be pretty rare to find someone that doesn't know about the plastic pollution crisis, and it's got much worse, but there's now this general understanding that we need to do something about it.
So what would they do? I mean, other than encourage people to take 3 to the beach, were there programs in place to fundraise? Like, what was the goal other than just everyone taking 3 back from the sea? Were they doing what sort of awareness campaigns and other stuff like that, I guess? Curious.
So Tim was traveling around the world doing his thing, I guess similar to what I'm doing now or was doing a few years ago. And he came back home and wanted to do something. And it's a really cool story. I don't know if a lot of people know about it, but I think he was camping somewhere on the East Coast. And, you know, as am I, he's always been a huge fan of Dave Rustovich, you know. And so Dave and Chris Del Moro, a Californian surfer, one of my favorite surfers, were doing a trip down the East Coast in protest of to protect I think it's cetaceans.
Cetaceans,
for the oceans, I think. So they were doing that, and lo and behold, they popped off in the pulled up in the campsite that Tim was at. And you know, I think they had shared an evening together, and I think that really invigorated Tim to be like, all right, what am I going to do now? Because you know, I'm seeing Dave, one of my idols, this awesome person, do this. And he went back, I think, to Central Coast and met with Roberta and Mandy, the other 2 co-founders. So the 3 of them were the co-founders of Take 3, and Mandy's got a background in education, and Roberta's a marine biologist. And so the 3 of them put their heads together and created this simple message, Take 3. And then so it was all about spreading that. And the main product or service is the education programs around Australia. So for over 10 years now, which is a huge milestone, they've been educating children all around Australia about plastic pollution. So just raising that awareness. And so they do we call them primary schools